Is there a day goes by when J.K. Rowling isn't vexed about trans people for one reason or another? Probably not, but she's popped up in the press again because there's some new legislation coming in Scotland on April the 1st about hate crimes. And I wonder why J.K. Rowling would be interested in hate crimes. Could it be that she does a lot of hate crimes? Let's find out. So, yeah, Frida here, Frida Pussy in Bio Wallace, back with another video. And today I'm going to talk about J.K. Rowling being involved and centred with some other people in this story about a new piece of Scottish legislation that's supposed to combat or to help with the reporting of hate crimes. And there are some people out there that think their free speech, their precious little free speech that they never shut up about, is going to be affected by this. But as we know, it won't be. Because anybody that pays any attention to Twitter, X, Elon Musk's free speech nirvana, will know that there's no shortage of free speech. There's an absolute abundance of free speech. People have got so much free speech they don't know what to do with it. They've got so much free speech that they're vomiting words constantly without knowing what they mean. So the main thrust of this seems to be it's working in two ways. It's going to give trans people too much power to get people like J.K. Rowling in some kind of trouble, boo-hoo, or it's working in a way that's the poor little guy, he won't be allowed to be racist anymore, he won't be allowed to hate trans people. Well, let me tell you, that little guy will still be allowed to be racist. That little guy will still be allowed to be a transphobe or a homophobe or whatever he wants to be, a phobe. What it might do though is create a better understanding of hate crimes. It might show a pattern of where these hate crimes happen, and it might lead to better education about hate crime. That maybe that's something they fear. So I want to have a look at a video from last night. This was news night last night on BBC Two, I think, and it was on, what was the day, 20th of March. So this is Victoria, Derbyshire, and a lady from, she's a legislator, or I don't know what she is, to be honest. She's from, I should probably find out, she's from For Women Scotland and Sex Matters, and she's the person that he decided to bring on to talk about this. No trans people, nobody that's going to be affected by this, and somebody from the SNP. Let me just get this up a minute, because I want to find this lady's name. It won't be a minute. There she is, Lucy Hunter Blackburn. Now, what do we know about Lucy Hunter Blackburn? Well, there's your first clue. There you go. LGB Alliance, Sex Matters, For Women Scotland. This is a Westminster funded thing. It's nothing to do with Scotland. Right, so let's have a look at it. Let's dive. I hope you like my background music. I always like a little background because it keeps me centered. So yeah. I mean, I don't know if you find it distracting, but I because of the way my brain works, if I don't have that, I'll just go completely off the rails. So I will turn it down a little bit though. Right, let's jump in.
At the start of next month, a new law comes in Scotland that has provoked a furious row about prejudice, offence and freedom of speech. It's called the Hate Crime and Public Order Scotland Act, and it criminalises threatening or abusive behaviour intended to stir up hatred on the grounds of sexual orientation, trans identity, age or disability.
So first of all, in terms of stirring up hatred, I don't think you could get a more toxic cauldron than social media at the moment. And this is where most of this vexation is, rising from. It's like some kind of horrible pyroclastic flow of hate, coming out of, spewing out all the time, and this cauldron of evil is reaching some kind of boiling point, and that is what is being reported to police. The transphobic hate crimes are through the roof and unprecedented levels, and I think what it is, but trans people are just fucking sick of it. It's like, no, we will not be bullied off social media by this bunch of arseholes, and if you won't do anything about it, we'll group together and we'll find a way to do something about it. That's what's happening. Is people standing up and saying, we're not going to take this anymore. I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm hopping mad. Anyway, so let's let's not get too comedic. This is serious shit, Frida.
Not biological sex itself. The Act creates a new crime of
I just missed a little bit at the end there. She said not biological sex itself. Now that is a really weird caveat to put on this, because is she assuming the lawyers, the people that draft this legislation, haven't thought of that? It's like the biological sex bit seems to be of a weird add-on that she's saying is not in it. But when people discriminate misogynistically or on gender, that kind of covers that. We're not looking at your biology. People don't look at your biology before they decide if they're going to hate you. They look at the way you look and how you present and who you are in the world. They don't say, no, has she got a penis? Or, before they decide to hate you.
Stirring up hatred against protected groups, punishable by up to 7 years in prison. The protected character...
In any reality, in that scale, J.K. Rowling would be going to prison for about 60 years. It's not going to happen, but on that scale of 7 years for that, which would probably never, happen.
Characteristics are age, disability, religion, sexual orientation, trans identity, and variations in sex characteristics, otherwise known as intersexuality. Stirring up racial hatred...
I think intersexuality is probably the wrong... I don't know. I mean, I just think that means non-binary identities, because intersex is a biological condition, like a condition or a state where the chromosomes are different. I just don't think that is the thing. I think it's to do with you don't anchor your identity to your biological self, and that can go anywhere between being non-binary, being trans. Any sexuality you want to express. So that could be that.
Is already a crime, but the new law omits sex as a protected characteristic.
You've said that already, Victoria. I'm not sure why you keep going on about it, but I think it might be because you have somebody from Sex Matters sat in a room ready to talk to you.
The SNP government says it's preparing a separate law to tackle misogyny. And here's First Minister Humza Yousaf defending the new law back when he was Justice Minister.
So to those who think they may accidentally somehow fall foul of the law in relation to even Elaine Smith's point, because they believe sex is immutable or they state an adult man...
You could just accidentally fall foul of the law. I mean, I'm not sure how many things you say accidentally, but you're not going to start saying trans women are men accidentally. That's not going to happen.
Man cannot become a female, or the campaign for the rights of Palestinians, as Sandra White mentioned to me yesterday, or those who proselytise that same-sex relationships are sinful. None of these people would fall foul of the stirring up of hatred offence for solely stating their belief, even if they did so in a robust manner.
There's concern, though, from those who believe single-sex spaces should stay single-sex, like J.K.
So those who believe single-sex spaces should remain single-sex tend to fall into a very specific category, don't they? Because they don't actually do the thing that they are saying they want. They're not combating misogyny. They're not protecting women. They're concentrating on single-sex spaces because they want to exclude trans women. They want to find an instance where they can say biology trumps your identity. Right? There may be a good case to be made for some situations, but the law already exists to do that. So when she says same-sex spaces, that's another dog whistle, because we know that J.K. Rowling and the people around her don't actually care about protecting women, because they don't actually do any of that. There's no support for vulnerable women there, and the people that do work in on the ground in outreach for women recognise that actually you're taking your eyes off the things we're trying to draw attention to and harming women by concentrating on these things all the time.
Rowling, who say their views could be criminalised and that women would be left unprotected from this new hate crime law. Responding to a suggestion she'd have to delete her ex posts, Rowling tweeted, "If you genuinely imagine I'd delete posts calling a man so as not to be prosecuted under this ludicrous law, stand by for the mother of all April Fool's jokes."
Well, so that's just J.K. Rowling flexing there and saying, I'll say what I want. You can't make me do anything I don't want to. Well, nobody's doing that, Joanne. You know, if you want to be that person, if you want to be like a permanently vexed petit bourgeois lunatic, that's your personality. Nobody can take that away from you. That is who you are. You know, that is your internal belief system working. But we should be allowed to say that is who you are. And if the people that follow you, if they follow you knowing that is who you are while you're doing Holocaust revisionism, that is who you are. So let people make that choice. Don't pretend that you're protecting women. Don't pretend that you care about women in sports. Don't pretend that you're suddenly interested in women in prisons. The only prison that J.K. Rowling tweeted about before 2018 was Azkaban. Let's be fucking realistic about this. And why isn't Victoria Derbyshire realising this?
Police Scotland say they're not instructing officers to target actors, comedians, or any other people or groups. However, explanatory notes attached to the Act say someone can stir up hatred through, for example, social media, online streaming, or public performance of a play, etc. Critics of the legislation have ranged from some feminists to the Catholic Church, people like Elon Musk, from artists to lawyers.
Here he is, but the free speech king rolling in. See, what have J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk got in common? Well, I hate to break it to Victoria Derbyshire, but they have the far right in common. They have neo-Nazis in common. They have extreme, abhorrent, anti-Semitic and other disturbing misogynistic groups in common that come out of internet cultures like 4chan, Kiwi Farms, and other types of things like that. And that is who they are. Right, let's not mess about here. This is a far right emboldening of the far right. So to bring these two people together in this clip and not mention that, not to have any insight on that, is absolutely 100% pure unadulterated BBC. Let's carry on.
From April Fool's Day, we'll see if their concerns come true. In a moment, we'll speak to the SNP's Fulton McGregor. But first, let's talk to former senior civil servant Dr. Lucy Hunter Blackburn of the Edinburgh-based policy research collective Murray Blackburn Mackenzie, whose work includes campaigns on sex-based rights for women.
When she says campaigns, they mean collating data to form arguments against trans people. That's what they mean.
Thank you very much for talking to us. I want to ask you, first of all, what is it that you fear you won't be able to say or tweet under this new...
I can't say trans women are men.
...law?
Well, the fear is that a wide range of things are simply unclear after the legislation. The attempt to try and get clearer protections for freedom of speech around sex and gender identity were...
Her background's fake. Look, she's got a shadow. You see it? You're fooling no one, Blackburn.
...totally rebutted by the government, and we're left uncertain.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could I ask you for some examples?
Well, the sort of things that women are worried about are talking.
It's not what women are worried about. Women aren't worried about this. Women in Scotland are not worried about this. They're worried about where the next meal is coming from. They're worried about protections to reproductive rights. They're worried about homelessness. They're worried about the fact that there's no rape crisis centre because these people tried to shut it down. That's what they're worried about. They're worried about they're worried about misogyny. They're worried about systemic, institutional and structural misogyny that these people actively encourage.
Talking about can lesbians only be women so lesbians can't have a penis was a sort of...
How can lesbians not have a penis? Listen to this. Horrible dehumanizing talk of bringing everything back down to somebody having a vagina or a penis. This is the opposite of feminism. This is like so abhorrently reductive that it makes my blood boil just listening to this, like, you know, petty bourgeois luxury vexation because she doesn't like trans people.
A phrase, can I stand with a placard and say that? What happens if someone says that trans women are men, that they can't change sex, people can't change sex, and things like that. It's really fundamental points.
It doesn't matter if you think people can't change sex. You fully, like how Humza Yousaf said in that video, if you have that belief, if that is your thought that people can't change sex, great, you can have that thought. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't change anything about my life, because I did change sex. The endocrine system is a fucking fascinating thing. You should look it up. It's called biology. It ain't that basic, but it's biology.
Based on the belief that people cannot change sex. And although the First Minister, as he now is, said in Parliament that it's all safe, that's not what the law says. And when we tried to get things like protection for those kind of statements written into the law, we would...
When trans people get spat on buses, they don't care what the law says. They just want a way to report it, where they'll be listened to and treated like a human being. They don't leaf through pages of law and going, oh, how can we get J.K. Rowling in trouble? No, it doesn't happen. I speak to trans people every day who are having abhorrent things directed at them, and I'll show you examples of that later. This person has no idea. This person must live in some kind of bubble.
Repeatedly rebutted in Parliament.
Okay. I mean, I am going to quote Humza Yousaf as a Justice Minister. He said, to those who think they may accidentally somehow fall foul of this law because they believe sex is immutable, or they believe an adult man cannot become female, or they campaign for the rights of Palestinians, or those that proselytise that same-sex relationships are sinful, none of the people would fall foul of the stirring up of hatred offence for solely stating their beliefs, even if they did so in a robust manner. Why? Because solely stating any belief, which I accept may be offensive to some, is not breaching the criminal threshold.
That's basically what I just said.
The problem with that is he's saying things in Parliament, but the law is what's on the face of the Act. And the Act doesn't say that. And we tried to get statements like that written into the face of...
Let's say this lady, Blackburn, meets me, and we're in a work situation together, and it's known to her that I'm trans, and I say, my name is Frida, and somebody says, and she can't call me miss. She for some reason, she's so upset that I'm trans that she has to call me mister. It's not a problem for me. It's not a problem for me at all. It's a problem for her and everybody else, because everybody else is going to be looking at her going, what's wrong with her? Why Frida's trans, and she's she. It's no trouble at all to call me she. But when somebody like this comes into the room and suddenly says, well, I don't accept that you're female, well, I didn't ask you. I'm not interested. Just get on with whatever you come here to do. Why are you approaching me with this? So then it might escalate to the point where I'll say, excuse me, can you not do that? Because it's rude. And then if she, so then she might hit me with a book or something, and then before you know it, you've got a hate crime. So I don't know. I mean, where does this vexation come from? Well, I'll tell you where it comes from. It's transphobia. That's what it is.
The Act.
Or trans hostility. I'd prefer that.
As has been done in England, where sexual orientation, when it was added, some specific protections were written in, and as are written in for religion. But the government would not write those statements in. So it doesn't matter what, in legal terms, what he said on the floor of the Holyrood is irrelevant. It means nothing.
Okay. I'm going to bring in Fulton McGregor, if I may. Thank you.
Before we bring in Fulton McGregor, I just want to add something to that. So, I was going off on there about the kind of hate that trans people get, and I'm just going to show you some examples of that now. So this is just something I found on Twitter. I'm really sorry, India, if you see this, and I have to show this. This is an account called Total Titter, You Total Ballend, it calls itself, and this is its circle here. So every one of these accounts, Glinner, Mayor Forstarter, I forgot his name, for LGB Alliance, all these people are connected by one thing. And what is the thing that connects all these people? Go on, I'll give you 3 guesses. Go on, you might win a prize. It's trans hostility. And what is J.K. Rowling doing here? I laughed. She laughed. Well, this account has attacked me personally. This account has made abusive images of me using an AI generator and sent people to attack my account. And obviously I just block them, right? But I shouldn't have to deal with it in the first place. This is the account calling people doctors that work in trans healthcare mutilators. This is this account made for me for Christmas. That's lovely, isn't it? So it's pretty low level kind of, whether you're offended by that. I mean, to be honest, when I saw that, I just laughed it off, and I thought somebody's spent a lot of time on the computer thinking about me, and this is what they've come up with. But what I'm going to say about this now is really important, and I don't want to gloss over it, and I don't want you to think that I'm diminishing anything, but this reminds me of a lot of anti-Semitic tropes. So this is a gallery of anti-Semitic art. I'll just zoom in on that if I can. And right, so you can see the kind of dehumanization kind of imagery. And this is the stuff that somebody sent to me. That's supposed to be me. That's supposed to be me. This is stuff that's being sent to me from people that follow J.K. Rowling. They all carry the I stand with J.K. Rowling hashtag. Now, why are they doing that? Why are they allowed to do that? Why is this allowed on social media? Because Elon Musk allows it on social media. And not only does he allow it on social media, he interacts with these people. And I'll show you some evidence of that. This is an account called Martin Salner? And Elon Musk, and Martin Salner is a well-known neo-Nazi. He was connected to the people, the person that murdered 51 people in Christchurch, New Zealand. That was a horrific crime, but these are networked. And here is Elon Musk asking, is it illegal to shut somebody's free speech down? Because he was selling a book or something. He's doing a presentation, and the police shut his event down. Why did the police shut his event down? Because he's a neo-Nazi, and this is in Germany, and you don't do that sort of thing because they have hate crime laws. They have hate crime laws to prevent this kind of thing from happening. It doesn't make those people go away. And they can be on social media, they can be on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So here's J.K. Rowling indulging in denying that the Nazis burnt books on the subject of trans identity. So why would she do that, Why does she... If she's so ignorant, she's either ignorant or she's fully complicit in the denial. So it's hard for us to say that, but I think a celebrated author, somebody that writes books, would read. See, I knew that, and I don't know. I'm not an historian, but I knew that. I knew that Nazis burnt books, and the books they burn were stuff about trans identity. So it's very disturbing to see that. So it's now part of the public record that J.K. Rowling has indulged in transgender Holocaust denial, saying that trans people were not targeted in the Holocaust, which we know they were. And how do we know they were? Because of historians telling us who've done the research. So we'll come back to the Newsnight video now. I think we'll let the SNP guy have a go.
Thank you for the moment to you. I may come back to you. Mr McGregor, hello to you. Yes, hello. Thank you for joining us. Can you first of all explain to our audience right across the country what was the problem this law was designed to combat?
Well, hate crime is a major problem across Scotland and across the country, and it wreaks havoc on individuals, on communities and on families. So in essence, this bill is...
So basically he's just addressing what he knows about what he's reported. Hate crime does affect people. People play it down and they call it hurty words, but it's not about that. It's not about words. Words escalate. Words mean something. And like I've said, for trans people, you know, we can be singled out quite easily. Now, I don't think he's gonna say anything I don't already know, or that he's a bit of a mumbler, so I'm gonna fast forward this a bit.
Pat was a member
How
of
do you know?
the Scottish Parliament committee that took forward this legislation, and there are robust safeguards in place to protect freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is
He's doing his
extremely
best here,
important
this lad,
to
bless him.
the Scottish Parliament, to Scottish democracy, to me as an MSP.
Sure.
And
I am going to pause you there, if I may, just because time is short. So you're...
See, I know he's mumbling a bit and he's not landing a point, but Victoria Derbyshire seems to have got a bias on this, because she feels like there's something she wants to say. There's something that she's being prevented from saying almost. She's almost on the defensive. Perhaps because she's a broadcaster and she feels like people could look at her words and take them out of context. But that's a completely different thing than targeting somebody based on a protected characteristic.
If I've understood you correctly, somebody holding up a placard saying lesbians don't have a penis, or
Can you
J.K.
stop
Rowling
saying
tweeting
that,
trans
Victoria?
women and men could be reported to the police. You've just said, but the police wouldn't take it any further. You've got no idea whether they take it further or not. The police, in fact...
I can tell you now, categorically, 100%, the police ain't going to do F all about that. Because I've reported people that have basically targeted me, posted about me every day for about 6 months, posted about where I go out, where I socialised, called me a sexual predator, and even though I've compiled all that information and sent it to a police officer and had a meeting with the police, they have done nothing. And the reason they've done nothing is because they just think it's social media, they don't take it seriously. Hate crime laws don't work for trans people. If you're talking about things like Victoria's talking about here, that is not what this is about. Now, I'm not saying that something should happen to people that were doing that, but realistically, if that extreme thing that happened to me isn't going to be looked at, so somebody saying trans women having penises is just a comedy trope.
In fact, Police Scotland have said they're going to investigate every hate crime.
So what I'm saying is the law doesn't
Once
come into
they've
place
decided
until
it's
the
a hate
1st of
crime.
April, and
Yeah.
these people could report these offences or these incidents just now. What I'm saying is the law that we passed, these are issues, these are statements or whatever example you want to use that shouldn't be taken forward and shouldn't be prosecuted. It's not the point of the law. The point of the law is not to curb freedom of speech, not in any way.
No, I know it's
that
not.
has perhaps been the
Freedom of
narrative,
speech is
but
a separate
that is
issue.
not. That is not the
But
point
it's
of the
still
law.
used by people.
I mean, I know
against
that's
us.
not the point, you say, but let me quote Tony Lenihan. He's 1KC. He says, the problem with this legislation is the offence is in the eye of the beholder.
Defence is always in the eye of the victim, obviously.
So, for example, Mr. McGregor, if you said to me, after April the 1st, we're in Scotland, Victoria, you're too old to be on TV. If I felt you were stirring up hatred on the grounds of age, I could report you to the police.
I don't know how to break this to you, Victoria, and I know you're not daft, but nobody's going to get anywhere with that. You know, you're not going to be reporting anybody to say, because you're a public figure. I don't know if you've noticed, but if you look at your Twitter feed, it's full of people saying worse things than that about you every day. You know, I don't know how we've got here in this discussion and totally missed the point. The point being that the lady she spoke to first is one of the ones that's whipped up all this hatred against trans people, which she hasn't addressed. And the guy from the SNP is basically just trying to do a job of explaining what the SNP are trying to do. And Victoria's going on about herself as if she's the victim of something. It's unbelievable. There's no trans person in that room. There's nobody from Stonewall. There's nobody from LGBT Foundation. There's nobody from any trans advocacy group in that room. It's just Victoria now deciding, what about me? If somebody calls me old. It's just ridiculous.
Correct?
Yep. Well, we've already established that you could report that to the police anyway. But what I'm saying is that isn't the point of the law. It's not. It isn't to capture these sort of instances.
No, I know.
And you know, I'm confident that the law will be.
He's not doing a great job, is he?
Properly by the justice agencies across Scotland. But what I would want to say is, I heard the previous speaker who I've heard on.
I don't know. I just want to break in the fourth wall a little bit here, but you know, if you're going to go on TV, right? If you know you're going to go on the telly, don't put your phone on that angle with your wallpaper, you know, in the back. It just looks bad, you know. Just don't do that.
Committee before as well, and others, and I do think that the government and agencies across Scotland, we do have a job to do to make sure that the people do feel assured and that the law works for everybody. So we can't, I'm in no way to do there, but by the SNP, by the Liberal Democrats, implemented properly.
I just want to hear what Victoria has to say.
Concerns will hopefully will prove to be unfounded, and people will hopefully be able to see that soon.
Could deliberately misgendering someone be a hate crime under this new legislation?
Well, I mean, it depends on the circumstances of that.
Of course, misgendering somebody is not a hate crime. Misgendering somebody could be a mistake, it could be anything, it could just... But if you are in a situation with somebody and they are deliberately using your transgender identity as the weapon by misgendering you, then yes, that could be a hate crime. But this idea that some people are going to accidentally call a trans woman a man and then face prosecution, it's like, be fucking realistic, you know?
That obviously that is part of the characteristics that are in there.
Yes.
But it depends on the circumstances of that, whether that would be classified as stirring up hatred. So,
but if
it's not an example I can talk about, you know, without the full context.
Yeah, I mean, there is no context. These are just examples which if you're bringing in this law, you should be able to.
Yeah, this is it. It's so vague. It's just so nebulous, you know, because it's all about the individual at the end of the day. The law must work with on a person-centered business basis in this sense. Because if your case, like say you had a case of a hate crime against J.K. Rowling, that doesn't mean there's some landmark ruling where everything that is repeated, all those words repeated in that order would apply to somebody else. It doesn't work like that. It's about the individuals, if the effect it's had on the individual, and there's so much variance there. People think the law is like just this like monolithic thing that, you know, once one law is passed, then everybody has to jump in line and everybody has to behave a certain way or say a certain thing. It's like free speech is free speech, you know. You have the freedom to be as abhorrent as you like, and that is who you are. You know, this isn't going to change. What could change is somebody like J.K. Rowling could stop stirring up so much hatred, and people like Miss Blackburn here wouldn't be allowed to, you know, represent herself as some kind of voice of reason where she's actually just working for a lobby group.
Answer for our audience. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. McGregor. I want to come back to Dr. Lucy Hunter-Blackburn. Are you reassured by anything you heard there?
No, not.
Why should she be reassured? You know, what is this kind of, you know, it's ridiculous. Like, as I've said, Lucy Hunter-Blackburn works for Sex Matters and the LGBT Alliance, and all those groups are connected, right? She shouldn't be asking her what she thinks about this. There's no grassroots movement of women that are bothered about this. It's all manufactured. It's all a repertoire of arguments that Helen Joyce will go on various right-wing podcasts and repeat ad nauseum, like mantrically. And that's where we are, you know. And this lady's on the BBC as if she represents some kind of feminist principles, which she does not, you know. Trans women represent feminist principles.
Not in the least. During the committee sessions, so Mr McGregor would have been in the room, Humza Yousaf, who is now the First Minister, made an explicit promise to us and to other women who were concerned that we would be contacted and involved.
She keeps saying us and other women. She means us and other lobby groups, us and other people that J.K. Rowling has fed money to create this movement, which is an anti-trans movement. That's what they don't want to talk to you. Why would they want to talk to you? You don't represent anything. You just represent people with money. That's it. You know, For Women Scotland didn't grow out of a need to exist based on the needs of women. It grew out of a need to exist to try and erase trans people and stop the law of self-ID. And they didn't do that. They didn't succeed. It led to Elaine Miller standing on a table and getting a fake pussy out and making a fool of herself. That's what that led to. That's all that happened there. But the Westminster have managed to interfere in that so much that it stopped, it stopped the rule of law. It stopped democracy. It's anti-democratic, and none of that is being discussed here because the BBC is Westminster based.
In work after the Act was passed to try and sort out our concerns, to put things in place. And that promise was roundly broken. I mean, really shamelessly broken. We kept on writing, when are we going to be involved? And eventually we were just told, no, you're not. So being told now that if we have concerns, they're going to talk to us. I mean, they've had 3 years in which they have absolutely slammed the door in our face, made no effort whatsoever to engage with people with concerns, and now they're surprised that as the law is on the brink of being brought in by a police force, which I'll add is extremely overstretched, we already know, they're surprised that people are still worried. It's gobsmacking, actually.
No, let's just hold that there. I want to show you something. For a lot of these people, like Miss Blackburn here, they think that hate crimes is just something like hurty words or something somebody might say on a placard or as part of a legitimate protest, but it's not. This is what happens. So I just want to show you this.
I'm going to record you being angry. Don't. Not being angry. I don't think Cheryl, there's enough sit on my name. Don't. When I only came out for a fucking bag.
People like you. It's not anything to do with men that want to be women that want to be men. You too.
Right, I'll just stop it a minute because it's quite hard to hear, but this is an altercation that happened in Blackburn. And this is a group of young people, some not so young, I don't know, but there's a trans woman that works in a bar, and there were these people mouthing off about trans women being men, and somebody stepped in to defend her. That's what's going to happen. But this is what's happened on a street level, and you can see how it escalates.
Do you actually think women can report men and women can report women? You can't.
Transgender people work.
I've been drinking in these posts with you and fucking nappies, hon. You can't do this, you can't. We didn't do anything. I came out for a sick, they started having a go at me. You can't do it, no, you can't. I'm not doing anything.
So that's the kind of ugliness of it, you know. There's no value to it. There's no free speech, nobility in free speech there. There's no like this thing we've got to defend or strive for. It's just people causing this aggressive situation about trans people. And when there's trans people present in those spaces, it's frightening because I've experienced it. You know, it's horrible. And if I was to report that and say this person was behaving like this...
Oh, we've committed a thought crime.
Oh, how terrible.
What do you mean by it? So saying men can't become women?
If I was there and this was happening to me, how do you think I would feel? Do you think I could just stand up and say, oh, well, yeah, that's free speech, that's okay? Should the police be able to help me in that situation? Because I know it's going to escalate. If I stand up for myself, I've got two options, haven't I? I've got a walk away option, they might follow me, or I've got a stand up to them option, which will escalate the situation, or I find somebody that can help me. And you can only hope that there's going to be a friendly bar staff or a friendly person on the street who understands the dynamic. And when the news cycle gets distorted so badly that they think trans people are the threat, people on the street who may have helped me might not. They might say, oh, well, you're trying to stop free speech. You know, I'm being attacked in the street. I'm being verbally harangued. And it's frightening.
That's a hate crime, saying men can't become women.
No, it's not.
It is a hate crime to give it to a trans member of staff, yeah.
There's no trans member of staff here.
You know, that's the fucking you stupid bitch.
What's that?
So there you go. That's a hate crime.
Wouldn't necessarily stop, for example, people making complaints to the authorities. And the police have said they have promised that all allegations of hate will be followed up.
Yeah.
So Victoria seems upset almost that some kind of hate crime would be followed up, like as if it's a ridiculous notion. But we know for a fact that most incidents, even street level incidents like the one I just described and showed the video of, nothing happens. Somebody has to be seriously hurt for the police to do something. And that's how it is. That's the reality of the situation.
You're right to say that. It doesn't stop at an individual contacting the authorities, no. But I have faith that this law will be implemented properly, that it will be implemented in the spirit that it's intended, and in achieving its aims of those of which are to tackle the scourge of serious hate crime across Scotland, which I think everybody agrees with, that there is an issue.
Thank you very much, Fulton McGregor of the SNP. Thank you for being with us and talking to our audience on Newsnight. Lucy Hunter-Blackburn, thank you for speaking to us. Thank you.
So what did we learn from that BBC video? Nothing. You know, that video harms trans people, and there's nothing going to be done to help us. You know, people. I complain all the time about things on social media, but it goes further than social media. These things have a trickle-down effect. So I want to watch this with you. This is a really powerful speech by Mary Black in Westminster. Mary Black's been effectively bullied out of politics. You know, she made statements about the hatred she's received just for being a trans ally. So I just wanted to leave you with this. This is how I'm going to leave this video. And it leaves it with a question mark. And the question mark really is J.K. Rowling a fascist? And I can't answer that question, but I hope somebody can.
It becomes even more concerning that this decision is political and it's personal, it is not professional. But most terrifying of all, Madam Deputy, is that this government literally want to get rid of the Human Rights Act. And that begs the question, for who do they think rights have gone too far? Do you know how scary it is to sit at home and wonder if it's you? Is it your rights that are up for grabs? We've witnessed Windrush. Our economic strategy is to open our doors to the rest of the world when we need their hard work and then chuck them out 50 years later without a word's notice. And over the last 12 years, I fear we are sleepwalking closer and closer to the F word. And I know everyone is scared to say it for fear of sounding over the top or being accused of going too far. But I say this with all sincerity. When I say the F word, I'm talking about fascism. Fascism wrapped in red, white and blue. And you may mock, and you may disagree, but fascism does not come in with intentional evil plans or the introduction of leather jackboots. It doesn't happen like that. It happens subtly. It happens when we see no, I've heard enough. It happens when we see that governments making decisions based on self-preservation, based on cronyism, based on anything that will keep them in power. It arrives under the guise of respectability and pride that will then be refused to anyone who is deemed different. It arrives through the othering of people, the normalisation of human cruelty.
I just wanted to add some things about free speech, because free speech is coming up as part of this discussion as well. So, but with free speech isn't really free. You can buy speech. People buy their way into positions of power in politics and the media, and it's not a level playing field. I've been invited to go on to BBC programmes like that and on the radio, and they will put me against somebody from a lobby group that's having thousands of pounds funneled into their cause. But I'm just alone. I'm the trans voice, and I don't have anybody apart from my allies who follow me and people that support me, my work and the writing that I do and these videos that I'm trying to do. I don't know if I'm any good at it or not, but I'm trying my best. But this is all I have. I don't have the backing of Claire Fox. I don't have the backing of any number of Westminster spin doctors. I don't have that. I don't have it. And all I can do is turn up and make a nuisance of myself and hope that I get listened to. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But it's important to challenge this stuff because it's insidious and it's encroaching fascism. And I don't use that word lightly, but it is. Because somebody's trying to control the narrative and demonise, dehumanise, and, you know, take us out of the conversation. And even, and to add to that, make us the aggressor. Make us seem like we're the aggressive party, that we're trying to shut women down, we don't want women to speak. So no, we want you to speak, because when you speak, you tell us who you are.